Hi, everybody. Welcome to another fun packed episode of Hey, What's New? With me, Derek, and that's Donny. If you haven't seen the show before, we're here today to discuss something that's been released recently in the AWS What's New blog. We'll show you all the exciting things that AWS is released, and build you a demo and show you how to actually use it rather than just read a blog. So we have this is episode 5, I think, Donny. So we're really getting into it now. If you haven't seen our past episodes, you can check them out in the link that I'll push up in a second. But let's first of all hear from Donny. How are you, Donny?
I'm doing good. Hello, everyone from sunny Singapore. Oh, we have a shout out. We have this regular
Oh,
member, Jones.
yeah.
Howdy, Jones.
Hey, Jones. How are you going? That's great. So, Donny, what are we going to talk about today on the show?
Okay, so today we're going to have fun and talk about three things. They are containers, PubSub, and developer tool. And this session is based on the what's new announcements that AWS Copilot now supports PubSub architectures. And yeah, we're going to talk about these three things and then how to integrate our application with PubSub using one single tool, which is AWS Copilot. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah,
Shall,
cool.
shall we do? Shall I do any demos now?
I think we should say just take a moment to
Okay.
think about the demo dots and how they will be good to us today
Okay.
in the broadcasting of this show.
Yep.
Go for
I'm wearing my lucky T-shirt.
it.
Okay.
Okay, you start, Donny, and if anybody has any questions that you want to ask Donny as we go through the demos today, then please just put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay,
Okay.
Donny, over to you.
Thank you. Can you put my screen up, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Derek.
There it is.
Okay.
Ta-da!
Yes, that is okay. So, as we mentioned earlier, that we are going to deliver this session based on the latest announcement that AWS Copilot now supports PubSub architectures. So, and what I want to share with you today is how easy AWS Copilot is to help you run your content applications. And with this integration for PubSub, it helps us to consolidate all activities, especially when building microservices, with a single tool, and that is AWS Copilot. And just a quick intro about AWS Copilot. This is the product page. AWS Copilot CLI is a tool that helps us to build, release, and operate production-ready containerized applications on Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate. And personally, I love AWS Copilot because it's amazingly intuitive. And what I like the most about Copilot is that it Copilot takes the best practices from defining infrastructures to continuous delivery and all in a single CLI. So we don't need to go in and out with other tools whenever we build applications, especially when we build it with containers application. Because the Copilot, it can handle, I would say, most of the activities from deployment, defining release pipeline to implementing architectural pattern like PubSub. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to share with everyone here to be more familiar with AWS Copilot, and I like to show a quick demo.
Okay, let's see the how Copilot works.
Yes. Okay, so in this demo, what I like to show you is how to deploy an internet-facing service with AWS Copilot. And what we have here is a simple Python application with
Okay,
Flask framework.
can you make the text a little bit bigger, Donny?
Oh, okie dokie. How about now?
No, that's better. Yep.
Very much better, right? So I have this application, right? So it's written in Python 3 using Flask framework, and you can see that it's a really simple hello demo. And besides that, we also have this requirements txt, and we have the Docker file, and also the local run docker.sh for me to run the Docker app locally, but it's not part of the app. So what I like to do now is to deploy the application using AWS Copilot. So what we can do with Copilot is that we're going to create a new application. Let me check is okay. I'm in the right folder. I'm going to start with Copilot Edit. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to define the application name. Oh, okay. So this one, I'm not going to use the existing application. We're going to create new ones. So pick no. And then the first step is to define the names, obviously. And then I can try to put it like a task demo. And then the next step is to define what kind of application that we like to deploy. We have a couple of options here. Request-driven web service, which will create an AWS App Runner service. And then we also have load balance web service, and this will create internet-facing app with application load balancer and ECS service running tasks on AWS Fargate, and that makes it a serverless application. And we also have a backend service, which means we're going to create an internal application and will not be exposed to internet. And this is particularly helpful if you like to create a microservices. And we also have the worker service, which allow you to implement asynchronous service-to-service communication with PubSub architecture. And this is what we're going to discuss for today. And lastly, the scheduled job. So scheduled job is Amazon ECS tasks that are triggered by an event with a fixed schedule or periodically. And for all the options you choose here, AWS Copilot will create a manifest file, and that's how AWS Copilot will do its magic. So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to choose the load balance web service. I'm going to put it as test hello, sorry, services hello. And then you can see that Copilot automatically see there's a Docker file, and then we can use this Docker file. And then which port do you want the customer traffic sent to? We can use 80. And voila.
Wow.
Now Copilot is
That's pretty
currently
handy.
creating the application. Right? Right, Derek. So this is what I meant as it's amazingly intuitive.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so
So,
yep.
so while that's building, Donny, do you want to maybe share with the viewers a little bit more about PubSub and what we're building at the minute?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay. So, as mentioned, that for today we're going to focus more on worker service. So let me give you a quick.
Please put that up. Yep.
Yeah.
There's the link there for worker service.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Derek. So when we define a worker service, Copilot creates two things, right? First, a worker running on Amazon ECS service and AWS Fargate. This worker will be configured to have permission to pull the SQS queues and process the messages asynchronously. The second thing is that Copilot will create the Amazon SQS queues to process notification published to Amazon SNS topics and dead letter queues or DLQ. Now, with this kind of integration between Amazon SNS and Amazon SQS, we can create a powerful PubSub mechanism and easily integrate with our architecture. And then back to Derek's questions about the PubSub. So PubSub, also known as publish subscribe, is a form of asynchronous communication for service to service, which is particularly useful in microservices architecture. Yeah, so we have this nice diagram. The way it works is pretty simple. We have topic and we have queue. The queue can subscribe to one or more topics. Now, if any message published to the topic, then the message is immediately sent to the subscribe queues and then can be processed by the applications by retrieving them from the queues. Now, the next question is that why? Why adding complexities with this kind of architecture? Okay, so when a platform grows, when your application grows, it can be difficult for different services to interact without creating interdependency. Now, this interdependency can cause significant challenges, especially in integration and data sharing, which in most cases will lead to degrading system performance if we don't handle the communication properly. Now, to handle this interdependency challenge, we need to decouple the services. And PubSub, among other approaches, is one way to achieve this. The publish subscribe model allows messages to be broadcast to different parts of a system asynchronously, so we can scale those services independently while still having integration with other services. And AWS provides flexibilities to implement PubSub for us, for developers. And one way to achieve that with AWS technologies is by using integration between Amazon SNS and Amazon SQS.
So,
With
Donny,
Amazon-
Sorry,
Yep.
can I stop you there? So, what is SQS and SNS? It sounds
Oh,
like a very somewhat three-letter acronyms to me.
that's a really good call out. Okay, so thank you, Derek. Um, Let me open Amazon SQS. Okay, so uh, this is Amazon Simple Notification Service or Amazon SNS. With Amazon SNS and PubSub architecture, subscribers can subscribe to certain topics, and publishers send a message to a topic. And the message that published by publishers will then be immediately delivered or pushed to all of the subscribers to the topics. Now,
Yep.
the other thing is while if we integrate Amazon SNS and Amazon SQS, that means that we are publishing a topic from Amazon SNS and we target topic to a dedicated queue or particular queues. And to implement the queues with Amazon with AWS, we can use Amazon Simple Queue Service or Amazon SQS. So Amazon SQS is a fully managed message queues for microservices, distributed system, and serverless application. And it's a common use case to integrate Amazon SNS and also Amazon SQS to do the integration with PubSub and also like finding out high throughput and low latency messages. So
Yep.
that's a quick intro about Amazon
Cool.
SNS and SQS.
And we also have a question, Donny, from
Yep.
Jones, and I think it's to do with Copilot.
Mhm.
Does it also take an ECR image if you have one?
Okay. So if I understand correctly, does it take an easier image also if I have one? If you meant by existing images on ECR, yes, you can define the image on the Copilot. So, okay, so let me touch this one. Let me show you. Boop, boop.
You're
Okay,
just going to query ECR. What are you doing at the minute?
so what I'm going to show, I think I'm going to show you how to integrate AWS Copilot
Mhm.
with the ECR as asked by Joan. So
Yeah.
the way it works is that whenever you create a service with AWS Copilot, it's going to create a manifest file. And this is how AWS Copilot does its magic based on this manifest file. And then you can use the ECR image on this configuration as well. So at the moment, I'm using the the Docker file from my
Yep.
applications that resides within this folder, but you can also use the ECR.
The image. So if you have the URN of the image, you can
Correct.
the ECR image, you can pull it down.
Yep.
Cool. Nice. Great question, Jones. Thanks very much.
That's
Okay,
always
Donny, sorry, where were we? SQS and SNS, you just explained what they are,
yes.
decoupling, and let's get back into it.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing that I would like to show you is to this amazing blog post, which is going to be super helpful if you want to dive deeper into PubSub with SNS and SQS. I highly recommend you to spend some time to read this blog post because it has a couple of features like topic-based filtering, attribute-based filtering, and also message filtering in actions, so you can implement immediately for your applications. This is amazing blog post. Oh, thank you, Derek. He already shared the link.
It's already there, and Jones is happy with your answer as well. So you're doing very well, Donny, at the minute. You're winning.
We are not on to the wait until the next demo. Main demo. Okay. So yeah, back to this blog post. It helps you to understand various patterns that you can implement depending on your use cases. Now, the next thing that I would like to share with you is to how to integrate with AWS Copilot. And to reiterate, with the latest announcement of on AWS Copilot, it makes very easy to integrate Amazon SNS and Amazon SQS to implement PubSub architecture. So let me share with you the architecture diagram that I've prepared for the next demo. So in this demo, the challenge that we're going to solve is how to decouple two services. We have two services here, pub here, and we also have a sub. Yeah. So these are the two services that we are going to decouple. Now, so the first web application, this is a web application and we call it as pub because it's going to publish the topic, and the sub is going to subscribe. So that's why I hope that explains why I use pub and sub. Now the flow starts whenever the application load balancers is receiving requests from clients, and ALB, application load balancers, will then forward the request to pub as it the target to process all requests. And for each request, the pub app will create a random string and publish that message to Amazon SNS topic. And lastly, it returns back a message to client. I'm not really sure what I put. I think it was a hello word or hello from Copilot.
A
But
nice
that's
200 message. Yep.
yes, but it's certainly it's a 200 message.
Yep.
And then the Amazon SNS will then publish the message to the subscribers. In this case, it's Amazon SQSQ. The sub application then will do polling to the Amazon SQSQ, retrieve the message, and then process it. And that's pretty much all of the process. Okay.
Yep. Cool.
So let's jump directly into the demo. Okay, the first thing that I wanted to share with you is the structure of my application. Mhm. Okay, so there are two folders in this root project folder, pub and sub. While the architecture is still fresh in our minds, let's discuss the manifest files created by AWS Copilot. And for your information, all of these manifest files that I'm going to share with you are created by AWS Copilot when we create new services. I will not dive deep into how you can create the service, but basically what you need to execute is the Copilot SVC command. And then it will guide you to create services. Like for example, let's try Copilot services in it. It's going to guide you to create services based on your preference. Then it will create the manifest files within the Copilot folder, uh, like what we have here.
Yep. It's very, very convenient.
Yes, it is. Okay, so yeah. So let me check.
Get you in the right directory.
Yes, mentioned right directory. Okay, so let's review the manifest file and let's go to the pub application first. So I mentioned to you that whenever we execute the service, creating service with Copilot is going to create the manifest file and it's going to create the Copilot folder here. And we can see that we have two services, pub and sub. So let's go to the pub first. Okay, so this is the manifest file for the pub applications. Yeah. So I define the type as a load balancer, load balance web service, and it means that we instruct Copilot to create application load balancer and target this application, this service running on Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate. The image that I use is the Docker file that resides within the pub folder and running on port 1990. And this is the pub application. It needs to publish to Amazon SNS topic, right? And to do that, you can define the Amazon SNS in this line. With publish field, Copilot will create an SNS topic called as ping and set a resource policy on the topic. And this will also allow Copilot services called a sub, which is going to be our subscriber. So this is really, really
Very
handy
cool.
because with this simple 4 lines of fields that we can define the integration with the Amazon SNS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
you can also set the memory and CPU limits as well. That is very cool.
That's really cool, right?
Nice.
So now you know why I love a Copilot.
Yes, I do. Thank you for sharing.
No worries. Okay, so where were we? Okay. After we define these fields, we can update and redeploy the service by executing Copilot service deploy name pub and environment tests. Okay, so because in this case, I already created a test environment, and you can easily deploy the manifest, the latest configuration that you define on the manifest file, deploy it and update your service using this command. Okay.
Yep.
So that's how easy it is to update the service with Copilot. Okay, next thing that we're going to cover is the sub So similar to the pub manifest,
Mhm.
and the
But
only difference
it's a
is
worker. It's a worker
it's workers.
service, Donny.
100 for you, Derek.
Yes.
It's defined as a worker surface, and also instead of defining the publish field, it defines the subscribe fields to topic called ping, like what we have defined earlier, and coming from pub service. We can also define the dead letter queue here.
Mhm.
And so we are telling the Copilot to configure the SQS how many times to try redelivering a failed message before sending it to the DLQ. And we can do more thorough inspection from the DLQ. And from this manifest, Copilot will create a subscription between this worker service queue and the ping topic from the pub service. Really simple, isn't it?
That is cool.
That is really cool. Okay, and once that we have defined the manifest for sub, then we can execute uh, the Copilot surface deploy again, but we can change the names to sub. Yep,
Mhm. Yep.
and test
Same
depending on
environment.
same environment, and
Yep.
then it will create the surface queue subscription and also the DLQ. And I almost forgot to mention that when Copilot successfully update and deploy the manifest, it will return environment variables. If you're deploying the SNS topics, it will create a variable called Copilot SNS topic ARNs and Copilot
Yep.
URI for us. Then we can use those environment variables into our application. Okay, so let me show you how it looks like. The how the output looks like when we successfully deploy the application, the services using AWS Copilot. So we can get the information of the application by executing Copilot app show.
Mhm.
You see that we have two surfaces here. We have pub and also and sub here. Now, the next thing that we would like to do is to get more detail from these surfaces, and we can use Copilot surface command. So let's try to get the details for the pub application first. Okay. So we can see that we have environment variables here, and we have, where is it? Okay, so we have this Copilot SNS topic ARNs along with the value. And if we do the same for the subsurface, we will get the environment variable for SQS topic. Let me show. Oh, this is one of cool thing about Copilot. If somehow you forgot the name of the applications, just run the Copilot surface show, and Copilot will return the list of the surfaces available. And
It,
these little details make me love building with AWS Copilot because it's so intuitive. It knows that I'm quite often forgetting the name of services that I've built.
yep. Yep. Does it make you a little cup of tea as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
It will also bake me a cake, Derek. Okay, so we choose sub here, and you see that we have Copilot Q your eye. And the same with the SNS topic, we can then use the environment variables and inject into our application. Now, we have covered the manifest file, and let's go to the source code. So we have two folders. So we have a couple of folders, but the main services folder is pub and sub. So I'm going to open the pub application. Okay. So this pub is a Flask-based framework written in Python 3. You can see that it's listening on port 1990. And upon the getting HTTP request, it's going to publish to Amazon SNS topic. And you see that I'm using the environment variables that already been set up by AWS Copilot. Uh, So yeah, so this is really simple. Whenever these pub applications receive a request, it's going to publish a topic with a random message to the SNS topic that we have defined.
Yep.
Now let's go to the sub application. Yes. So this is the sub applications, and we this is a worker service, and this is a long running application that polling to SQSQ. In for this subsurface, I retrieve the SQS QRI here. Yep. Which is the environment variables that we got from AWS Copilot. And I also defined two messages here: receive queue message and also delete queue message. So what this application is going to do is going to retrieve the queue message from Amazon SQS. And once that is successfully retrieved, it's going to delete the message. And that's it.
Yep.
Right.
Nice.
It's very simple.
Very
Now,
simple.
the next thing that we're going to do is that we are going to try it out. Okay, so I'm
Come
going
on.
to thank you, Derek. So
I think, Donny, for someone who uses Vim the way you do, you should have no fear whatsoever.
oh I'm currently having a fear of missing out. I'm I'm trying to use the Visual Studio Code, but I'm still fail on configuring the Visual Studio Code. I need to get that kind of knowledge from you, Derek.
No, I'm in awe of your Vim skills. So please continue, sir. Please
Okay, I
continue.
can share with you my Vim configuration.
Okay. So
Okay, yeah. So here I'm splitting the terminal pane. So on the top, I'll get the ALB IP address and make a queue request. And for the bottom pane, I'm following the logs from the subsurface to see if it got the message that published by the pub. Okay. First thing first, let's get the ALB address. Well, we can get the ALB address by executing Copilot service show for the service pub. Why the we are getting the details for the pub service? Because the pub service, if you remember, is the internet facing service. Oops. And so you can see that we have the IP address, the LBDNS for the service application here. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And what we're going to do now is that we're going to do a couple of curl requests. Yep. Boom, boom.
there we go. Pong.
Pong.
We have a
It's supposed to
response.
be like a ping pong.
It is ping pong.
Yes. Okay, and in the bottom
Working.
it's hopefully working. This part is working. Let's try the sub worker service. And in the bottom pane now, let's watch for the logs for sub. And to get the logs from the service, we can use this cool command from Copilot, Copilot service logs, Copilot service logs, and then name sub, and pass, and with flag follow. And the follow flag is, oops, I'm not in the correct directory. Yep.
Yep.
And then I'm going to do the tutorial. Copilot pops up. And the follow flag is pretty useful as it's going to show you all the logs from the running service.
Okay, so it's stealing those logs, is it for you?
Yes, it's
Nice.
stealing those logs.
Nice.
And you can see that we have this message coming from the topic published by the pub. And you see that we have all of these details. This is basically the SNS events and going through the SQS, and this worker service is retrieving through the long point messages. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much that what I have for this session.
Nice.
And if you want to play around with the code,
yes, we have the code.
Yes.
Let me push up your link here. Is this the right link? There we are.
That is, I believe, is the right link. So yeah, if you want to fiddle around with this new cool feature from AWS Copilot, I've created a repo for you, which you can find them on my GitHub repo. It's still work in progress, but I assure you, next week I'm going to get it done. So I'm going to share with you the step-by-step guidance to demonstrate on what I've done for this demo.
Cool. Awesome demo, Donny. Well, let me just arrange the screen so it's it's good. So yeah, awesome demo. Very convenient way of scaffolding out a decoupled application. That's cool. I haven't used Copilot before, so thanks for teaching me that. That was a very
You're
cool
welcome,
demo.
Derek.
Thank you. Was there any sort of last thoughts you'd like to give our viewers around Copilot before we leave them today?
Yes, I do. I do have a couple of things to share with all of you. So first of all, if you're building with containers and using Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate and never play around with AWS Copilot, I suggest you to start with it. It's amazingly intuitive. It seamlessly works with other AWS services because Amazon ECS has a wide spectrum of integration and play nice with other services. So kudos for team who built AWS Copilot. The second thing is that I like to share with you is with this PubSub integration, it actually reduces the learning curve to integrate PubSub architecture with Amazon SES and Amazon SQS, along with best practices implemented. The third thing is with this feature, we no longer need to use different toolings to develop application. If I just got started with my application, I can deploy monolith and with Copilot.
Yeah.
And along the way, if my system grows, I can start moving to microservices and implement PubSub to architect the surface to surface communication. So
Nice.
for me, it's been a really pleasant experience working with Copilot and hoping all of you get the same experience as well.
Awesome, great. Well, that's we've ran out of time today. So if you have any questions for Donny or myself, or we have our I was going to say Flutter, not Flutter, Twitter. Our
Yes.
Twitter handles are there. Please reach out and ask us anything around developing on AWS. So yeah, it's been a pleasure as always to broadcast to you across the channels that you are, and yeah, see you next time, Donny. Would you like to say
Next time.
cheerio to all the guests? Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Have a nice weekend and happy building.
Happy building. Nice. See ya.
See you guys.